In this society, male energy, male thinking, male energy is vilified.
Welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, my name is Catherine, and unfortunately today this video is specifically for the ladies. If you're a guy, unfortunately I'm going to need you to leave, to click off, to check out, whatever floats your boat. Hopefully I'll see you another day. But now that all the gents are gone, ladies, I've been thinking, and I think I have a solution to all of our problems. You know, we've already come this far. You know, fourth wave feminism is more than just an abstract now. It's a realized experience in certain parts of the West. We've already girl bossed our way up many a corporate ladder, realized corporate ladders of our own fashioning, and the only real thorns in our flesh have been, arguably, untempered rivalry in all its multivariate incarnations for male attention. I'm sorry, we can't work with a woman whose brand is about pandering in every conceivable situation in which our interests are at conflict to the sympathies of the opposite sex.
I think you need to have some skin in the game, right? Women, right now, we're not doing any of the infrastructure jobs, not at large. We're not paying taxes, we're in a loaded debt, and we keep voting for policies that ruin the country. So I just look at large and I think to myself, why do we deserve to vote? If you just limited it to people that pay taxes, are not in debt, are not taking child support, alimony, or any of that stuff, it would be like 2 women that could vote.
It's not an issue of emotionality, really. It's a question of strategy. If you're reliably predicted to always feel bad for the enemy, how can we trust that you'll protect the interests of the team? We also can't work with a woman who, well, yes, shares our desperation for comfortability, would rather inherit that comfortability by the favor of a well-off man, by satisfying his most urgent interests.
Baby girl, I'm just gonna give you a really hard cold reality check. You know how we're always jokingly saying, oh, I just want to be a trophy wife, or oh, I just want to attract a provider man, or I want a chivalrous man who will take care of me. Now, the reality is rich people prefer to meet or hang out with other rich people to maintain their social status. So in order for you to meet all of these rich men or even be in that social circle, you also have to be of a certain financial standing. See, I'm not saying that you have to be a millionaire, but being an independent girl boss who makes a decent amount certainly helps. Because to someday be a soft life stay-at-home wifey, you gotta put in the work first. Oh, but a tip for my broke girlies, golf courses usually have a cafe or lounge. You could chill there instead. Order a drink and maybe land a daddy or 2. You didn't hear this from me. Cause if you think about it, these type of men will not be at home lazing around at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday swiping on a dating app.
Whether it be because he likes you enough to marry you or he'll pay you enough for sexual privileges, at the end of the day, you're not working 70 hours a week to get a guy to like you enough such that you're struggling to get by. Unlike us, I think they've always been enviably clear and uncompromising about what they want and what they need and how they want it given to them. And those features, right, the things that they like, those aren't particularly difficult to manufacture, especially if you're a woman who just knows what you're doing.
The most important thing is emotional control. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control your man. And being able to control your man is how you get what you want.
Ladies, the only problem is that they know how to weaponize certain temptations. The ones that they do know that we have against us. I mean, we're constantly pitted against each other to rival for the most desirable object of status-associated esteem and wealth. It's always a man in the upper echelons of the social and economic hierarchy, especially so significant when we talk about desirability politics. The jawline, that won't go away. But it's probably because we're known to simp so loudly, aggressively, and sometimes embarrassingly for a particular selection of male characters, such that they know what type of carrot to dangle in front of us. They know how to make us enemies of each other. That's leverage, that's power. But it's all dependent on their regard or disregard for certain preferences, of us, certain preferences of females within the population. So it always directs back to them, which is why, guys, we need to cut it off at at the root. We need to erase them as a factor to consider completely. Oh, and after that.
And it's so funny because when I talk to guys, I know they agree with me deep down. I know they just hear laughing because I'm right. And see, because you wouldn't find this funny if you didn't know that it was true on some level.
But you say,
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair that we have all of the say. All of the politicians have to cater to us.
I get the feeling that there are a few men still here, and shame, bless your heart if you actually left. Guys, wherever they are, call them back. We actually need them here. I'm being serious though. We actually need as many of them as we can here in order to have this conversation be effective. And that's the thing. I actually do think that it's crucially important that they are here. I was joking, by the way, the first section of this, I was kidding. I was joking. Honestly, I think I had a bit too much fun, but anyway. And I don't know if it's maybe a little bit difficult to believe. I understand the skepticism though, I guess from the male side, but I do actually care. Maybe a little bit more than I should, but I don't invite you here the way many of these uniformly perspective podcasts invite a very distinct type, a very distinct range of conversationalists onto their platforms for debate with the sole purpose, and I mean the sole purpose, to only further prove the thesis of their brand, right? I'm not inviting you here to further prove my point. Rather, I'm inviting you here to pick it apart with me. The essence of a 21st century online hosted debate is to invite the perspective that, through contrast, will make someone or another's, correctness more glaring, more explicit. And that's not what this is. Quite frankly, I'm sick of those. Pandering is exhausting. We actually need solutions. And I can think of 1,000 other places where you can get that elsewhere. So just so that everyone knows, this isn't that video. So guys, because I know some of you are thinking, right? Before you prescribe a label or ask where my biases lie, basically where am I coming from? Because that's what you like to ask when you're cooking up talking points and you're looking for a fight. Okay, this is what you should know about me, at least for now. I don't think a woman can do everything a man can do. And I don't think that a woman should be able to do everything a man can do. I don't think a woman should encroach on certain roles of territory. But I think sometimes, and most crucially, they are forced to. In the absence of a father, for example, sometimes they are forced to assume a paternal role. When we look at psychopathology, it has been widely studied that children raised in single parents, specifically single mother households, are at an increased risk for psychopathology. So we're looking at anxiety, identity issues, depression, and general instability. This isn't because women are inherently crazy, confused, and we've just never known what we're doing.
I don't care what any baby mama say. Having to raise your kids by yourself is not a flex, and this is coming from a single mother. Listen to your sister. Don't let any baby mama deceive you into believing that being a single mother is more convenient than being a wife. You hear me? And I can go on and on about my baby daddy, F my baby dad, F my baby dad, but I slept with him. So what kind of woman did that make me? A crazy motherfucker. Okay?
It is sadly true that single mothers are more likely to engage in negative parenting behaviors, and they're not inherently inferior parents relative to cohabitating mothers. Rather, I think basic objectivity tells us that her parenting practices are often compromised by the myriad of socioeconomic demands and stresses. The socioeconomic and environmental strain to protect these vulnerable persons against every potential danger that the world might and will throw at them is incredibly debilitating to an independent psyche. And this crisis, right, the single parent crisis that I'm speaking to, is consistent in the reverse. Children without mums don't have the best time either. This video though is about the paternal side, so I will be speaking more so to that. It is more than necessary to ask, what gaps isn't she addressing? What roles isn't she fulfilling correctly, or at least fulfilling to the optimum benefit of the child? These emptinesses that I'm speaking to, right, form part of the set of purposes only accessible by distinctly male efforts. And that's the thing. They are distinct because we haven't been able to resolve these issues ourselves, ever, no matter how independent or empowered we become. I said that I come at this divorce from the Western perspective. And I want to draw important divergences between the traditional role of men and women in westernized structures versus those within Africa and East Asia. I'm talking about the very ancient types. You in the West, and I mean this very nicely, you talk a lot about coming to Africa and seeing the lions. So I implore you, look indeed at the lions. social hierarchy of a pride, right? It's fascinating, at least to me, but I think you'll see why as I explain, because it very much mirrors the hierarchical structures of many an ancient African tribe. Women did not sit pretty in their households and breed until kingdom come, leaning exclusively into the nurturing maternal function of their role, which is necessary, but I think need not to be all-encompassing.
She's gonna be digging some holes to get some, usually the rats are for the kids and also women. So while the men of the community go to hunt some big animals, the women stay back to find some cute tubers and do other stuff, and also they hunt some rats. So they already found one, and as you can see, also a very hard task to do, because catching a rat is very.
Of course, the American 1960s housewife, as many people have pointed out, gave into extreme isolation, drug addiction, and even today, which is quite sad to see, an exhausted boredom that seems to take over, a depression in some cases that, ceases to be addressed in endlessly taking up aesthetically stimulating hobbies, cleaning the house, and raising the children. These activities are crucial, and full transparency, I would actually love to do this one day, but there is a certain idolatry in certain understandings. I don't know if you guys have also noticed this, but there is a certain idolatry in certain understandings when this becomes your entire identity and you become a function of your reproductive value.
I want to start this video by saying that I'm not asking for money and I'm not asking for sympathy. And I've been sitting in my car crying ever since, because I never have enough money. And why do I never have enough money? Because when I was a 19-year-old girl, I fell in love. My Mormon faith told me that I was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. I got married. I started having babies. I dropped out of college. I never had a career. My only jobs that I ever had in life were a waitress at the Olive Garden and managing a pretzel maker in a mall. Oh, my first couple years of marriage, I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I bought a windshield business. I was 20. And my Mormon stake president reminded me that women weren't supposed to work, so I quit my own business, handed it over to my husband, took my name off of it. I would work our family business throughout the next 24 years of my marriage, but I never got paid. I didn't have a salary. My name wasn't on it. I literally worked for room and board account. I didn't even have a bank account. I should have said that in the beginning. I never had a bank account. He would give me little envelopes of cash to go grocery shopping with. Anyway, that house sells, the money goes in the bank. I just asked if I could buy myself a piano with the money. Living in my car while he made about $250,000. He would eventually quit that job so that he wouldn't have to pay alimony and child support. He has only paid alimony one time ever in the 5 years since we've been divorced. Once ever. Right after my divorce, I remember being really confident about my ability to get a job, so I put together a resume. I remember one of the first interviews that I had, this management position for a windshield company, similar to the one that we had run. And the man actually laughing as he was interviewing me, like he was really sympathetic. He wasn't being a douchebag, but he was laughing. And he's like, so let me get this straight. You helped manage your family windshield business with your husband, but you were mostly a stay-at-home mom, and all you did was like the marketing and the hiring, firing, and some of the strategy for the business. But it became really apparent that I needed so many more skills to have any type of management job. I couldn't even work the basic computers. He told me in the interview, please don't apply for any more jobs like this. You are not qualified at all. You're not capable of doing this unless you go back to school and get your degree or get some different experience. And so I ended up, my first job after my divorce was $11 an hour, 4 hours a day, working as an assistant to a school teacher in an elementary school. I made $44 a day. For 24 years, I lived in $1 million homes. I vacationed all over the world. I spent my summers in Hawaii. I could buy myself $500 jeans, diamond tennis bracelets. We had boats and RVs and whatever I wanted. And it never bothered me once that my financial security was dependent on that man being in love with me.
It's like when a man is reduced to a function of how much he can provide financially. That's wrong too. Anyway, back to the lion pride situation. What I find so interesting, honestly, about these social hierarchies, and please, I encourage you to read more on them. You'll you might go down a bit of a rabbit hole, but you know, I think that's completely fine. But the necessary roles taken, you know, to steward the household included going out, fighting the beasts of the field for both their meat and their grain. If not then it was a combined entrepreneurial effort amongst other women to exploit the natural resources of the land and to instruct their children as nurturers, but also as teachers, right? To teach the children how to toil the field, how to exploit the resources of the land. I always find it so curious, I guess maybe someone can explain this to me, how the West tends to use their description, or at least their interpretation of the Proverbs 39 woman, defend their particular interpretation of the traditional ecosystem. She makes sure her dealings are profitable. Her lamp burns late into the night. Her hands are busy spinning thread, her fingers twisting fiber. She extends a helping hand to the poor and opens her arms to the needy. She has no fear of winter for her household. I think you guys get the picture, right? So ma'am is working, ma'am is busy, but she's also not a threat to our husband. And why? Because what is missed in all of this is that there are greater risks, there are greater threats and rivalries to this ecosystem, to this society, than the small antelope, the boars to be hunted, the storms that weather the grain, you know, droughts, marketplace political dynamics, and so on and so forth. Basically, all of the things that man has to contend with on a daily basis. There are rival kingdoms. There are leaders and other tribes, other prides that threaten to burn the entire thing to the ground. In other words, there are dragons. Number 2, and I hope you're staying with me, because we're going to pivot to the role of the male lion in the pride. Males defend and, you know, define the pride's territory. They mark the area with urine, roaring menacingly at intruders and potential threats they know that the female lionesses will have no chance against. It takes 10 hyenas to bring down a single male lion. The wars that take place at night between lions and hyenas are fascinating. Please watch some of these videos on YouTube. These wars are unimaginable and they are gruesome. So without males, essentially, areas with high numbers of hyenas would dominate all of the lionesses within a particular pride. Both the lionesses and their cubs would essentially just become free food for the hyenas within a particular area. This is significant because with a male lion around, females are the pride's primary hunters and leaders. Male lions engage in wars. Well, okay. Male lions engage in the wars that would otherwise rip the females to shreds. I would imagine, you know, it would be difficult fighting for your life and then the next morning looking out like to find squirrels. I don't know. It's just interesting. When you observe the pattern of takeover within these ancient African societies, you'll see that there is so much variability, specifically in the defined lines between these borders. There was so much expansion, so much contraction, because they were constantly fighting. And yes, the women, for their intelligent aptitudes, were very much involved in strategy and political negotiations. But when it came to who was on the fighting lines, right, who was picking up the sword, who in some ways even refined the strategy, it was the kings, the soldiers, etc. Absolutely essential. These tribes, by the way, are not a model for how we should, in the 21st century, now modern day, interpret our gender roles, how we should model our gender interactions, but they do explain a lot of the reasons for our biological, right, our physical differences. I feel a lot more protected in a public space, right, when I am out at night, say with a guy friend, because usually, and just objectively, he can just handle a lot more than me. Even though, yes, you know, I've got my pepper spray, of course. I've got my interpersonal evasions that my mom taught me how to use, exploit to easily and safely get out of these situations without, you know, in-person combat. I find that, and this is just a tangent. I find that people often weaponize this idea of women being weaker, which is like, yeah, you kind of have to be in order for this whole ecosystem to not collapse on itself. So yes, sure, okay, we've identified protection as a potential purpose, as a potential, I guess, function for, you know, why men are important. But you see, the thing is, I want to be very careful with how I frame this, because for as reductive as it is to reduce a woman's purpose as a, you know, a baby making, nurturing machine, equally as damaging is to reduce the encompassing value and function of the male persona to an unfortunately necessary protector, emotionally unavailable, you know, sexually starved, but again, like I said, necessary protector against society's most inconvenient threats. In fact, it might even be more harmful. possible. Because if you don't end up becoming a father, if you're not at the top of the socio-economic hierarchy, men tend to then, and heartbreakingly so, absorb this idea that they are disposable, which is so sad. I think we forget to appreciate the range of individualism that exists within the male population. And in that diverseness, we see an increased anxiety, because for every divergence, there is a greater exclusion for one standard. This anxiety, as we've seen, can manifest in the form of rage. And understandably so, there is an incredible frustration that belies in not being able to pin down your purpose, your use, like why you here, which brings us back to the question of today's argument. What gaps do you fulfill in society that women don't? Gaps specifically that women tend to actually compromise in and not do that great of a job in, to, quite honestly, everybody's detriment. I'm going to introduce you to the pulp era. So, okay, during this time, narratives portraying matriarchal dystopias were very much so prevalent, depicting societies either devoid of men or where women had absolute control. These portrayals often cast such societies in a very negative light. In Consider Your Ways, which was made in 1956, male domination is portrayed as oppressive to women. Yet, and this is what I find also just very interesting stuff to think about, but the narrative suggests that liberation from the defined patriarchy is only achievable within the confines of an authoritarian, caste-based female society. Virgin Planet, I also encourage you to please look at that, presents another an interesting scenario. So essentially, so what happens is 500 castaway women devise this method of asexual reproduction, and I think like we're seeing such plans manifest on TikTok, but for a discussion for another day. However, this method results in offspring that are genetically identical to their mothers. Over time, the planet becomes inhabited solely, and obviously this would be the case, copies of the same person. Copies, essentially, of the same original woman. In this female-dominated world, males are often considered as mythical beings, which is an interesting concept, because I see this a lot. I guess I saw this happen in strictly female schools amongst girls who for the entirety of their high school career had no interaction with guys. Again, males were almost like this mythical idea. Anyway, in the story, when a man eventually lands on the planet after years of isolation, he then struggles in the story to convince all these females, all the inhabitants of this planet, of his existence as a man. Like, imagine that. Imagine having to prove that you exist. Isn't that kind of what we're doing though? I am not being facetious here. Think about it seriously. When a girl, specifically an adolescent teenage girl, says that she feels like a boy, what exactly does she mean? You would think, right? Just follow my logic. You would think that in wanting to change your gender, you know exactly what predefined features of manhood you identify with / don't identify with. And so you wish to assume those roles within society. What are those roles exactly? What are those features exactly? And please don't tell me it's about wanting to go to the gym, bulk up, more interested in Star Wars than you are Barbie, higher sex drive sometimes, not really the romantic type. Because if manhood is that superficial a range of features to you, then you might as well just like click off right now, because we don't have time for such baseless politics. It's not helping anyone, unfortunately. I find it incredibly reductive. I think men are so much more than those superficial features, but what I will say is that, because this video has gone on long enough, and because I love stories, myths, and legends, that's basically like half this channel. I've read a lot of classics, and one of my favorites is Peter Pan, the boy who never grew up. It's about 200-ish pages, relatively short. I think you can find a free PDF on Google if you look hard enough. But anyway, I really loved Peter. Carefree boy who could just take you on adventures and humor you and bring this lightness to life. It was such a draw for me as a child, especially so when I was younger. He could be your best friend, and I noticed how even at that age, I inclined to certain characters like Peter, because Peter is so confident in his restlessness. He cannot sit still. He's so charismatic, but he has this strange relationship with Wendy. And as I grew older, I really began to identify a lot with Wendy, because she became a lot more aware and I think fearful, but simultaneously curious of how dependent the vulnerable could be on her, especially in relation to her younger siblings. So I started asking questions, and if you don't know, I am the eldest of 3 siblings. So I had a point here. So Wendy was not attracted to Peter, yet you would think that in identifying so much with Wendy, and honestly coming from a place coming from as someone who liked Peter so much, that I would continue to like Peter as I grew older. Not the case at all, no. I started to resent Peter and everyone who had personality characteristics analogous to Peter's presentation. Because Peter can only ever be your friend in childhood. He can only ever be the crush or the boyfriend who takes you on these crazy, insane adventures, appeals to your entertainment. And I started really realizing how wrong that is. Because Peter in the books has a dark side to him. And what's so interesting is that this dark side really only ever comes out, this aggression, when he is threatened with the idea of being accountable for his actions. Essentially reckoning with any type, any form, any conception of responsibility.
Bitch lied and said that I got her pregnant when I fucking did it. And then you dumbasses, 3 years later, believe some bitch that makes the same fucking allegations again.
It is so bad, you guys, that Peter will abandon you. He will sacrifice you to the real threats of adulthood, the challenges, the beasts, the dragons. Let them devour you if it means that he doesn't have to deal with him. Because remember, he's a kid and he's chosen to remain that way forever. But does that really make him a kid? He wants to remain a boy, a child. He wants to remain a dependent. He even struggles with his relationship with Tinkerbell because like, yeah, I like you, we're friends, but I don't know, this like loyalty, commitment thing, it might be a bit too much. I might occasionally leave you in life-threatening situations, and he does do this. And Wendy knows that enough to grow up, to get married, to physically stop seeing Peter, because this is another interesting thing. She physically stops seeing Peter once she gets married and has children, which is great actually, because Peter would only ever be her ruin. And I'll tell you why. He hates responsibility to the extent that he will run away from it at the detriment of people he claims to love. This is kind of the definition of a man-child. And Wendy wants to be a mom. She wants to be responsible for certain vulnerabilities. Peter will never join her in that effort. In fact, Peter might actually pose a threat to those vulnerabilities. You can't be a boy forever. You must take on burdens, good burdens, I think. As a man, you know, you need to take those on. And please, don't ask me what they are. You've been listening to me, a stranger on the internet for far too long. But a lover is a burden, a good one, I think. But it's not the only one you can take on. And it need not be the only one. It shouldn't actually, doesn't even have to be one, because women are not the be all and end all of life. Take on a business, take on a passion, be responsible for something outside of your own interests. That will force you to mature, because your body quite literally will not have any other choice. And I think purpose reveals itself in that restless, that uncompromising pursuit of things beyond yourself. And I'll tell you this, one of the most beautiful things is to see people mature. I love witnessing it, I love being a part of it, and I hope to see it, you know, within you if you took anything from this video. But yeah, I hope to see you next time. I hope to see your comments. I don't think that this discussion is exhaustive of everything that we could, you know, get into. But I was talking for a while and I got tired. But anyway, I will see you next time. You take care. Please, 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 please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Your experiences, your perspectives, and just be honest. I think everyone will benefit from your honesty. So yeah, I'll see you next time. You take care and goodbye.